Hey, we're going. All right. Thank you, John, for coming over. Appreciate it. Um, I was doing some research on you, and I can go into Ultra Sign Up and look at, the races that are official on there.
Mhm.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've got 5 finishes in Leadville.
Correct.
So 5 finishes in Leadville. And the reason I want to mention that is because what I want to get to is first, how did you even know about the race? And I think 2005 was the first year you ran it. But
Mhm.
like, let's walk through your adolescence. What'd you do for sports when you were little? And then we'll lead up to 2005. How did you even know about it? You do it, and then it's 7 years later till you do the next one.
Right.
And now you've done five. And the most recent one last year was part of that lead challenge.
Right.
So that's kind of what the deal is. And, I think when I talked to Kurt about his experience about failing and then going back,
Mhm.
to me, I think that the mental toughness or just the knowing not versus not knowing.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you that early on when we started running together about Leadville was when you were training for 2012. Is it better to know what you're going to go through or to not know what you're going to go through and then to keep going back? So to me, it's amazing. One finish is amazing, but five is incredible. And I don't know what. And then we'll talk at the end. Like, what's your next goal? Because I know you're always trying to set these crazy goals, like bench 315 pounds and do all this other stuff. So we can talk about that at the end.
Okay. Well, I guess to start,
Yeah.
growing up, I was a baseball, basketball, football kid. Running never interested me. Didn't do it. Didn't like it. I did go out for track once in junior high and once in high school for the sole reason of trying to get faster for football.
Uh huh.
So, yeah, running wasn't really part of what I did growing up. And I guess fast forward to 35 years old.
No.
Um, Probably the furthest I had ever run was 11 miles. Like one time in high school or college, like just ran out to the end of the country road just for the heck of it.
Hmm.
And my wife wanted to do a marathon down in Tucson. And she said, "Would you train with me?" Try and be a good husband. I said, "Sure, I'll do it." So we ran the Tucson Marathon. And then even after that, I didn't have the running bug. Most I would ever run might be like 3 miles, and I'd try to run it fast just to kind of get that sprint burst of energy, and then so it'd be have endurance on the basketball court. And then when I was 39 years old, my sister was a teacher out in Colorado, and it was Christmas break. I was working in Chicago, and she was home for school break, and I was home for a few days at my parents' house in Marion, Iowa. And we were sitting in the living room, and I'm one of 13 kids and grew up in a house where we tease each other a lot. It's kind of our way to show love, right? And so we're just sitting in our family living room, and she looks over at me and she has a smile on her face, and I'm like, okay, something's coming. And she said, "John," she said, "I've got something that you should do." I said, "Oh, really? What's that, Kim?" And she kind of knew that I wasn't a runner, but she's just having some fun with me. And she said, she said, "There's this race out in Colorado, and these crazy mountain men, they run 100 miles through the mountains. I think you should do that."
Mm.
And I just laughed and said, "Haha, that's funny." But I said, "Wow, that's pretty amazing." And so while I didn't want to do it, I was curious to know about it. So she told me a little bit about the race. And honestly, that was it. Didn't think anything more of it. It wasn't like I heard that or say that and like, that's something I have to do. It's
Right.
like, no, not at all. Oh, I'm sorry, I got my age wrong on that. She told me about that in 1991. So I would have been 26 years old. Yeah, okay. So this is important to remember these dates because it's really weird. So 1991, I heard about the race.
Hmm.
And literally for 13 years, I don't ever remember thinking about it, talking about it, having any aspirations to do it, nothing. So now it's 2004.
Hmm.
I'm a professor at St. Ambrose and teaching, got my doctorate, life's going good. Probably got, well, I got all 5 kids by now. Um, and had been kind of busy doing a lot of extra teaching and things like that. And the kids are in all their activities. And we had a professional development arm at the university. And one of the ladies in charge, Maureen Conway, called me up and said, "Hey, John, we're doing this coaching class, and we're trying to train some Ambrose professors to be coaches to go out and work with people at
Hmm.
Deere and the Arsenal and Mid American Energy, and this would be a way for you to earn some more income and a way for us to increase business. Would you be interested in being a certified coach?" I said, "Maureen," I said, "that sounds really interesting." I said, "But I don't know." I said, I'm just pretty busy with what I got right now." I said, "I'm going to take a pass." I said, "But I know you're trying to fill this class." And I said, "If you can't get enough people and you need me, I'll do it."
Hmm.
She said, "Okay, thanks." Next day, she calls me and said, "I need you." I said, "Okay, fine." So I go through this class. It's like a week-long class and certified to be a coach. I was like, it was a good class. I really loved it. And that was over, and they gave us our certificates. And they said, "There's one more thing. You have to do 6 coaching calls with the person who taught the class so that you know what it's like to be coached before you go out and do your coaching." I'm like, "Oh, goodness. Okay, fine. I did it." So the next week, we have my first coaching call. And the lady, her name's Bobby Gemma from Florida, wonderful woman. And she said, "John, here's the way this works." She said, "I usually ask you about how are things going at work? Are there any problems that you're having? You tell me about it, and then I help you work through it." I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine." She said, "So tell me about a problem you're having at work." I said, "Well," I said, "I don't want to make anything up." I said, "Honestly, my job's not perfect, but it's really good. I'm a teacher. My my classes go the way I want them to. I'm in
Yeah.
charge, and it's like I really don't have much to complain about. Once in a while, you catch a kid cheating, that's no fun, but that's not really worth the conversation." And she said, okay." She said, "Well, answer me this question." I don't know why she asked it, but she said, "What fires your jets?" I'm like, "Excuse me?" She said, "Well, what gets you really excited? What gets you up in the morning and like gives you energy and like you want to do it?"
Mm.
And the question just hit me really weird at the time because I'm like, "Okay, I'm pretty good on my feet. I can come up with something and I could just like put this to rest." I said, "That's a great question." I said, "You know what? I want to answer that for myself in the best way." I said, "Can you give me a week to think about it?" "Yeah, fine." Seems like I'm rambling here, but I do have a
No.
point. So I thought about it for a week and I was like, I think I came up with the answer. And so the next week she called me and said, "Hey, John, how was your week?" I'm like, "It was great." I said, "Bobby, I've got an answer to your question." I said, "I know what fires my jets." And she said, "That's awesome. What is it?" I said, "Well, I've been thinking about it." And I said, "It really has to center around motivation." I said, "I like very positive minded people who are goal oriented. And I like reading their books and I
Hmm.
like listening to them speak." And I said, "There's a few occasions where I feel like I've been that person for someone else to help them achieve." And I said, "That really puts me on cloud nine, gives my life purpose, and just makes me feel alive and energetic. And that's my answer." And she said, "That's great. What are you going to do about it?" I said,
Yeah.
I said, "I didn't think about that. I guess I wasn't really planning on doing anything about it." She says, "Oh, no, 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 no." She says, "You have to do something about it." She said, "The energy I hear in your voice, you've got to follow this. You can't let this go." I said, "Well, okay." And then I'm just starting to think out loud. I was like, "Well, you know, I guess my dream of dreams would be, I'd like to be one of those people that inspires others to greatness." And I said, "I would love to be like a motivational speaker." I said, "But I was like, I've had a pretty vanilla life. Everyone has their struggles, but I've not been a prisoner of war. I've not won a national championship." It's like, why would anyone want to listen to me talk? And I said, I don't feel like I've done anything of great significance." I said, "I wonder if there's something that I could do that would be really wow, that would make people say, I want to go hear this guy or
Yeah.
find out what makes him tick."
Hmm.
And I stopped mid-sentence in there and I paused for about a second and I said, "I'm going to run Leadville." She said, "What?" I said, I know this is crazy. I said, 13 years ago, my sister told me about this race in Colorado. It's 100 miles. You run through the mountains. I said, I'm not a runner, but I'm pretty tough and I'm pretty stubborn. And I said, I think this is something that I could do. And that could be a platform from which maybe I could talk about grit and motivation and achieving your goals and things like that. So that's how I got to run Leadville.
Yeah.
No weird story.
No, I think it's an amazing story. I think I knew maybe the ancillary stuff to it, but I didn't know the origin of
Yeah,
that woman asking you
I
and
know.
then what motivated you. Because that's kind of what I wanted to find out. And here's why. There's two things I want to bring up. One, you ended up doing the part that you want to do, which was motivate people and inspire people to do crazy things
Hmm.
or set really crazy goals and try to go and achieve them. And so one thing there is that I asked John DeDonker, how did he get into running? So
Hmm.
he's, casual runner,
Right.
did some running, but he said in 2007, I believe, he saw you speak at an event.
Hmm.
And he's like, man, when I heard John Byrne talk about Leadville and getting, hypo epoxy,
Yeah.
all these things, and then wrapping your legs in duct tape. And he
Yeah.
said, that motivated me to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing I want to say. And you've motivated and inspired other people. And this is my next point. I was trying to think about like why in the world did Leadville become such like this Quad Cities thing? And it's because of you. And I compare you to, if you know anything about the NFL, there was a coach called Bill Walsh.
Hmm.
And if you look at Bill Walsh in the center of, there's so many coaches that sprung off from
His tree.
him.
Yeah.
His tree is so huge. And your tree, when it comes to running in Leadville, it's the same thing here. I
Yeah.
just had coffee with Austin this morning and I was like, man, it's so true. If you look at it, you had John DeDonker, 8-time finisher of Leadville,
Hmm.
heard you speak about it, went and did it, and is going to try to go for 10, the 1,000 mile. Me, Rick Fountain, Kurt Johnston, and that's just like the inner onion layer. And
Hmm.
there's probably more that I don't even know. But then if you look at after outside of that, who we've also brought in, like Evan Kilstrom, Austin,
Hmm.
Andy
Hmm.
Besser, like
Hmm.
all these people, it just keep Emily Busey,
Yeah.
Troy and Billy and all and Jeremy and Mike Poster. Like there's this running circle, and you're at the center of it.
Well, thanks. I don't know about that, but
You
yeah,
are.
it's been a great group, and that's been very rewarding for me. I mean, and I get joy out of doing it myself. I mean, it helps build my self-esteem, and to achieve hard things, I think builds your confidence and esteem. And I've enjoyed it personally, but it's been really rewarding to see the joy that this race has brought to all the people that you mentioned and others. So I take great pride in that.
Yeah, and then so you do it in 2005. And then, the thing that I hear the most is that, hey, there's other races other than Leadville. Why Leadville?
Mhm.
That's my question now is like, okay, you do it 2005
Right.
by the skin of your teeth
Yeah. Yeah.
with like less than 3 minutes or 2 minutes or something
Two
like that.
minutes and 13 seconds.
Yeah, which is unbelievable.
It is. And what's even more miraculous is that I even finished the thing. I was so unprepared and untrained. I mean, I did the best I could. I just didn't know enough.
Yeah.
Um, Fortunately, I went to the training camp 2 months prior and I picked up enough knowledge and could come back and alter my training a little bit. It was enough to get me through, but sometimes I just think it's the grace of God that I was allowed to finish.
Hmm.
I felt like looking back, I'm not sure I deserved to finish, but I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
Yet in 2016, I was much better trained and I didn't finish. So there's another life lesson there too. You don't always get what I'm not saying I deserved it in 2016, but I was much better prepared and I didn't finish. 2005, I wasn't prepared at all. And I made so many mistakes. And how I finished, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. So you were asking why Leadville, why
Yeah.
go back?
Hmm.
I just totally fell in love with Ken and Mary Lee in that community. They, I just felt so welcomed, and they talk about family, and sometimes people say that, and it sounds cliche-ish, but they really mean it out there, and I really felt it. And I was thinking, if I'm going to put this much effort and work into running 100 miles, I
Yeah.
want to do it in Leadville. The altitude wasn't my friend,
Yeah.
but that's okay. That was again just another extra challenge. But I've never had a desire to run Western States or the Boston Marathon. They're great races, but it's just like there's certain things that appeal to individuals and certain things that don't. You know, I don't really have any interest in hockey, but I love football. I love basketball. So, everyone's just different. But
Yeah.
no, I got the Leadville bug, and every time I want to run an ultra, I want to go back there. Actually, the only other, well, I gotta remember the definition of ultra. It's over 30 miles.
Yeah.
So I probably run 50 of them, 48 of them in practice. But
Right.
I did do the Zumbro 100 in Minnesota a year ago,
Yeah.
and that was really a training run for Leadville. And then I did the Mines of Spain 100K about a year and a half ago. That was to train for Leadville. But yeah, my thought is like if I'm going to work this hard, I want to do Leadville. And so it's just sort of become, I don't know, my race.
Yeah. It is.
No rhyme or reason. I guess that's just how I feel in my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, maybe, and maybe you can answer this, maybe it has something to do with that community out there. But
Mm-hmm.
if you think about the origin of that race,
Love it.
it
Yeah.
is pretty inspiring to think
Oh my
about the
God.
guy created a
To
race
save the
to
town.
save the town. And I don't think a lot of people know the whole Leadville story. Not many people. I didn't even ever heard of it until I
Right.
met you, right?
I didn't hear of it till my sister told me
Right.
about
And
it.
she lived out there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I know that people that travel through there, they're always saying how I can't believe ran a race at altitude and all that stuff. And I talked a lot about the statistics on that race too. So the question is like, okay, you do an '05, and then what made you go back? Like, why did you decide to do it again, knowing it was hard,
Sure.
knowing I mean, I don't know about other ultras like hundreds, but I'm pretty sure that Leadville's probably got I'd say least success rate. I don't know.
It's pretty
It's
low.
pretty low.
Barclays might be a little bit lower,
Yeah, but I mean that's
but yeah, Leadville is a very, I mean, less than 50%, around 50% of the people don't finish.
yeah.
It's incredible because you think about people who toe the line on that race.
Mhm.
They're not just deciding on Tuesday to run that way. They're planning 6, 9, 12 months in advance.
2
They're
years, 3
training.
years.
They're good runners.
Absolutely.
And to think half of them don't finish and they're really committed to distance running, that's a mind-blowing fact
Mhm.
to me.
Yeah.
So, okay, so back up. So 2005 I finished. Wow,
Mhm.
I'm great. So I'm like, I'm gonna write my book. I'm gonna go become a speaker. Probably get three-fourths of my book written in the next 9 months, and then takes me 15 years to finish it. Another story. And part of my thinking was like, do I want to go back? I was like, oh, probably not because, geez, that was so hard.
Yeah.
So I put it in the back burner, and I kind of got my goal. I finished, but my real goal was, well, I don't know. My goal was to do it in under 24 hours. I've never achieved that. And if I were to ever go back, that's kind of what I want to do. But man, I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to cut you off, but I
Go ahead.
remember hearing from other people that have run it that if you know the Leadville race and you know the Leadville community, they don't ask you what your time was. They
No,
ask if you finished because of that. So I know that setting that goal of under 24 hours is pretty steep. I mean,
super steep.
yeah. I mean, I don't know the percent of how many finish and get those big buckles every year, but it's pretty small.
Oh yeah, no, big buckles are probably less than 10%, maybe 15% of those who finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty elite. So, okay, so when I came back,
Yeah.
I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna, be this motivator and tell people set high goals. And I started to look in the future and I thought, well, what if 20 years from now, the only thing I tell people is, hey, back in 2005, I ran Leadville. I was like, that's not a very good example of pursuing your goals.
Yeah.
So for me, Leadville honestly was really the beginning of a life of trying to achieve a bunch of goals. So when I came back from Leadville, you're right, I could have said, hey, I'm going to go back and run Leadville. I'm going to run it faster. But I was like, I was kind of tired of running. I was like looking for a change of pace. So I started to say, well, what are other feats that I could do? And then so for the next, 5, 6 years, I started doing other things, not related to running, but started going after some other goals. And then I guess I would say around 2010 or 2011, I started to get the bug again. And it's like, well, I did finish Leadville. It was great. But you know what? I made so many mistakes. I know so much more than I did before. I wonder if I could go back and do it better.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could get that 24-hour goal. So that's what drove me to go back the second time. And then in 2012, um, I did it it was really special because I ran the race with Rick Fountain,
Yeah.
my best buddy. And I actually did have my best Leadville time ever. Didn't still achieve the ultimate goal, which I wanted, but now I'm 2 for 2. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so that's why I went back. If if I had run the first Leadville in 23 hours and 50 minutes, I really don't think I would have ever run Leadville again. Because I achieved
Yeah.
my goal, I would have moved on.
Yeah.
Think I would have that goal like, oh, I want to win Leadville, because that wasn't where I started with. So it is really funny, I think, sometimes when you set goals, sometimes we set them at an arbitrary level. I want to,
Yeah.
if it's golf, I want to shoot 80. Okay,
Yeah.
once you shoot 80,
Yeah.
it's like I've achieved my goal. Now, some people will reset and they'll say, I want to shoot 75, I want to shoot 70. But I'm a person, a lot of times, once I achieve it, it's like, it's done.
Yeah.
Time to move on. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's part of why I kept going back to Leadville. It wasn't because, like, well, I need a third finish, I need a fourth finish, I need a fifth finish. It was like, I want to get this
Keep
24-hour
going.
goal.
Yeah.
And I've failed 7 times at it. But along the way, it's come a lot of humility and learning and success. But you don't always get everything that you want. And that's okay too.
Yeah, it's interesting you said about the goal setting, like arbitrary numbers and stuff.
Hmm.
I had the chance to sit down last week or on the with Michael Wardian. I don't know if you know him, but he's got so many records, it's insane.
Wow.
And he holds one of the notable one because it's happening right now. Some guy's trying to break the Appalachian Trail time,
Okay.
and Mike holds the oldest. He's 50 years now, 51, I think, but he ran it the fastest 50-year-old Appalachian Trail. Okay, and
Crazy.
he's got the U.S. at over 50K record, all this stuff. And we were chatting and we talked for like an hour and change, and we talked about goals, and I asked him like what's next, and he kind of stuck back and said something about, don't put like the couch to 5K goal.
Yeah.
Say I want to run a marathon. If you don't run, don't set a short goal. Like put
Yeah.
that one higher. Like you're saying, finishing Leadville is amazing.
It
Doing
is
it under 24 would be like incredible.
incredible.
But set that and then, you finish is still an accomplishment. But you went for big. You went big. It's like set
Shoot
huge
for the stars and
and
you
you'll
might hit
hit.
the moon, right?
Correct. That to me is like everything, right?
Hmm.
Because you can have in business, in any kind of aspect of your life, to set a goal, especially in business. How many businesses achieve their goals every year?
Right.
You know, I mean, if you look at statistics in baseball, right? No one's hitting 1,000.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, but they don't even say I want to bat 1,000.
Right.
They say I want to bat 300. Like,
Yeah.
why even? Why not? Why not bat 1,000? I
Yeah.
mean, stuff like that. So that's when I met you is 2011. I
Right.
just moved here
I remember.
and I wanted to find a running community and I did. And you were the one that kind of like, again, you were that center. You and Rick were training and I don't even know how, um, I think it was through Michelle Russell, maybe. Like I
Yes.
saw
I'm trying to
at a
remember it. Yeah.
race
Oh,
or something,
mm-hmm.
but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. But I mean, now we're training together, and I had never run further than a marathon, and that was my thing. I always wanted to run a faster marathon,
Yeah.
right? And so I meet you guys, and you're training for this race, and I'm like, no way. There's just no way. And Mike Wardian said it the other day. When he was younger, he was like, I can't believe people ran 50 miles straight.
Right.
So here you guys are training for this race I'd never heard of, and it's 100 miles. And I'm like, man, I don't think I'm ready for anything like that. But it stuck in my head, like your sister's conversation about that race. I was like, maybe someday. And I don't know what it was that I think it was because everybody decided to do it. And that's
Yeah.
the other thing I was talking to Austin about. If everyone decided to do it, I'd probably do it again.
Yeah.
But my record's pretty good, 1 for 1.
Oh,
I don't
it's
want
yeah.
to, I don't know. I know now what it takes, how hard it is to train, and then I know what that race, the amount of effort and pain that you go through.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
amazing.
you I think have had one of the best back 50s I've ever heard of. It was just amazing. I mean, you paced yourself through, but um, I don't think a lot of people would have been betting on you at mile 50, but
Yeah.
you finished so strong. Of the six of us, you were the last in
Mhm.
at mile 50, and you finished first.
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
It's awesome, but
It is.
it's how you finish versus how you start.
Yeah.
And I know you had good pacers, and you had a lot of grit and determination and a lot of, running intelligence, and you executed your plan perfectly.
Yeah, it's funny that morning. I remember waking up. We were at that house, and you had said something like, I think Rick was like taking some videos, and you had, oh no, it was the Pat's crew. Remember, they were filming us,
Right.
and you had said something like, and I probably get the distance wrong, but you said it's not about the first 60,
Mm-mm.
it's about the last 40. And I don't know, that stuck in my head, and I always had that mentality of don't go out too fast.
Yeah.
And that's never truer than it is in a 100-mile race. You know, I remember running in the early part of the race, and Pat and I, we were just got off the road, and we started to go into that like trail that's kind of it's groomed, and then you
Yeah.
go into the woods or the terrain. And there was a guy there running, and he's like, you people are running way too fast. Not me,
Yeah.
but like the
Just
people
in
ahead of us.
general.
They're
Yeah.
trying to pass us and everything. And he's like, look, he goes, you're half you people ain't finishing this race if you're running like that. But anyway, I remember. So now you start training, you're training with Rick, and you do 2012 and you finish. And now you have more, let's say, resume for your speaking and public speaking. And
Right.
we had you come and speak at Deer, which was amazing, and you kind of inspired a lot of people, I think, in that audience, because before I did it, I was like, it's unbelievable. I think it's perspective. People that don't run have no idea. But it's funny when we run as a group, especially with when we were running together, doing 20 milers
Mm.
was like,
Par for the
yeah,
course.
no big deal. I ran 20, ran 15, ran 60 miles this week.
I love some of the old pictures we'd take a lot of times. We'd take them before we start. It's like
Uh-huh.
4:30 in the morning. It's
Yeah,
dark. You can't even see people
right.
and their shadows.
Yeah.
Those are good days. Hard days, but good days.
So 2005, 2012, now another 4 years until you attempt it again. What motivated you that time?
Um, I mean, kind of same old story, every time you come back, I wasn't usually one of those guys like, oh, I got to run it the next year. I'm like, okay, I need a break.
Yeah,
And so same thing after 2012 is like, wow, okay, I cut my finish time by 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's
that's,
really good.
yeah,
But it's like, I'm tired of running. I want to go bench 300
yeah,
pounds and I want to, make 100 free throws. And
yeah.
so I started doing those things. But then a couple years later, the bug keeps coming back. It's like, wait a minute, okay, now I learned a lot from race one to race two. After race two, I learned even more. Maybe this will be enough to get me over the hump. And so honestly, I felt like in 2016, I think that might have been, I thought I was the best prepared. And
Mhm.
that was the year I didn't finish. So yeah, I think that was like, okay, I didn't get the 24 hour. I can still do this. And so I wanted to take a third shot at it. That's what made me want to go back again. And then I didn't make it in 2016. So then I'm coming
Yeah,
home pouting about it and
yeah,
like thinking Leadville has been so good to me. This really stinks. And I'm thinking, is this my last memory I want to have of Leadville? And it took me about 2 weeks to decide, no, I've got to go out on a high note. I'm coming back. And so I went
yeah,
back in 2017 and I finished. My time wasn't that great. I was like 28 something, 28:13. I mean, no, it's great to
yeah.
finish, but it
What?
wasn't like, I mean, it was worse than the previous year. or
Yeah, 27 hours.
2012.
Yeah.
But it was a finish, and then I remembered how grateful I was just to finish and all these other things, and it set me good again. And so even after 2017, I didn't know I was going to go back. Um, but then it just keeps coming back like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe I can do it again.
Yeah.
And now I'm in that mode too. It's like, okay, last year, it's like I do this lead man. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, my 100 time wasn't great. I mean, I finished, grateful to finish. Love my lead man for
Yeah, let's
lots of
wait. I
different
want to wait.
reasons.
Let's back up for 1 second though,
Okay.
before we get to Leadman, and that's going to be the next thing. But from 2005 to 2012, '05, no question about it. You had no idea what you were doing. You didn't
No.
plan. You didn't everything. 2012 had a plan,
Yeah.
had a better idea. You already did it. You finished it once, so now you're going. You're training with all of us. So from 12 to 16, um, what did you do different, or how did you motivate yourself to go back? Like, tell me how you went through that process of, okay, now you decide you're going to run it in 2016,
Mhm.
and we get this big group, the Quad City Leadville Six. We're going to raise money, and we did. We raised a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what did you tweak? Like some tips for people that have never run it. Now you've done it twice. What did you do going into 16, and then can you kind of walk through what happened? Like, can you pinpoint what
Sure.
happened, right? Because
It's easy.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So,
So from 2012 to 2014, I didn't do anything. I was working on my bench press.
yeah.
I probably put on 30 pounds. I was working on my free throws. And then around probably the beginning of 2015, so this would be a year and a half before the race, I'm like, hey, you should do this again. And, I think I was just excited that I had closed my gap by 2.5 hours. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
if I can close it by another 2.5 hours, boom. Or well, maybe 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
I can do this. So I'm all excited. In terms of training, what did I do differently? Um, Great question. I guess as I look back on it, boy, we trained pretty hard in 2012. I don't know if I trained harder. I guess I just maybe I um tried to tweak some things like okay, going out a little bit slower, but nothing major. Continue with the plyometrics and running stairs and um you know maybe working out more often. So maybe instead of, 4 days a week, 6 days a week. Um, we did a 24-hour run in 2012.
Yep.
So that wasn't new, but we did it again in
Mhm.
2016.
Yeah.
We had run to West Branch before,
Yep.
that 58 miler, and we did it again.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure there was a whole lot new. I probably tried to be a little bit more conscientious about like, okay, fueling
Yeah.
and thinking about how I'm going to fuel and make sure I'm getting my salt but I don't know if there was any like revelations like I'm doing this way differently. I don't think so. I think it was maybe just a little bit more training and probably more trails. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
doing a lot more of Illinois and
Yeah.
Sunderbrook
Yeah.
Park trail running than road running.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm
that
not,
makes sense.
yeah,
I mean, I remember doing it and then didn't even know Sunderbrook existed.
yeah, me neither.
you know,
Yeah,
and I'm like, why weren't we running this for 6 months, not
yep,
2 months? But you mentioned that you felt like you were more prepared for 16, though. So how do you like mentally, maybe, right? That's a
yeah,
huge part of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like I know what to expect. I've been up and down Hope Pass. I
Yeah,
know how hard it is. And I also have the confidence like I've done this before.
yeah,
I can do it.
yeah.
So yeah, some of it's probably more of a mental or emotional game. But I also thought physically I thought I was better prepared. I was. I was older, but still in my 40s, so it's like, that's not too old for running. I'm
No,
60 now, so it's
yeah.
like there's probably some stuff going on inside of my body that I don't even realize that makes this extremely challenging. You look in the logs, there aren't a lot of people over 60 who finish this race.
It's
If we
funny.
talk about a 50% finish rate, under 60, or over 60 is probably under 10%.
Yeah. I just had that conversation with John DeDonker, and I was saying, okay, if it's 50 for the whole field and it's like less than 20 for over 60, and you're still going back,
Yeah.
and you know now your odds of finishing are less than 20%, and you're still gonna go and do it. You know, it's
But
amazing. I don't
but
know.
remember, so he didn't finish his first time.
Yep,
He's finished 8 straight.
I know.
He knows how to run this race, and I
Yeah,
follow him on Strava. He is the tortoise and the hare. Well, he's not slow, but he's the hare or the tortoise. He is consistent, gets it done. He knows this race by the back of his hand. I would put big money up for him to finish the next 2 years and get his 1,000 mile buckle.
it's funny. There's that cliche saying where the student becomes the teacher, and you were the teacher, and because he admitted, he said you were the reason he got into it, and now here he is, becoming your like, okay, I'm following him and doing, what he's
He
doing, and
followed me and surpassed me.
yeah,
And he's to my knowledge, he's the only big buckle guy in the Quad Cities.
yeah,
He ran a 24:20 in
I know,
2014 or 13 or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm totally impressed with John.
yeah. So now let's talk the lead challenge. Um, so now, I mean, I looked at the stats that the 5 races or 5 events that you
Hmm.
did, and I've heard this before, and Donker confirmed it. He said that the marathon was probably the hardest part of it, and it's a hard marathon. I don't know. I
Yes.
mean, not the hardest part, but a very challenging marathon.
So, okay.
So tell me, walk through first. You 20. What was your before 2024? What was the one before the
I finished
what
in
year?
2021.
Okay, so 21 to 24.
Well, 23 I ran
23.
but didn't
Okay.
finish.
Okay. So now you had another DNF and you go and you say, I want to do the lead challenge.
Hmm.
Why? I know is it
Okay,
the next,
good.
you know?
So similar to 2016 and 2023, it's like I love Leadville. This can't be my last memory of
Yeah.
Leadville, a DNF. I gotta go back, but I've got to do some things differently. Otherwise, I'm just in the same boat. I'm not getting any younger. So then I thought, okay, I still want the sub 24, which, crazy people are like, you're nuts. Just forget it. You're not that kind of a runner. But I'm pretty stubborn, so I'm like, well, maybe I am. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, what I've been doing has not been working. What do I need to do differently? And so I thought, okay, um, I had heard that if you're training for both the bike and the run, that it saves your knees a little bit, but you actually have to train harder and it puts you in better condition and your run might be better because you are also training on the bike. I don't know if that's true or not
Yeah.
because the run kind of beats you up, or the bike beats you up too, and that's a week before.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, a week later, I've got to do this run. So I don't know. I guess I just drank the Kool-Aid. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this will work. And so then I actually hired a coach,
Okay.
Paul DeWitt, for that year. I'd never done that before. Paul won Leadville in 2003 and 2004. And he coached John DeDonker.
Yeah.
And I like Paul. He's a good guy and he knows what he's doing. He's big on training smart versus training hard. Well, you do both, but
Where does he live?
North Carolina.
Okay.
And he's not a super high mileage guy, but he mixes in the training and he's got these cycles where like week one you train medium, week two you go hard, week three you go harder, week four you go the hardest, week five you reset, and then you just do it in sets of like 5 weeks. And so then he mixed in my bike and he mixed in my run, and he's like, you got to do some training races, not just
Yeah.
training runs, but races. And so
Hmm.
that's when I did Mines of Spain 100K. So I did the Zumbro 100 miler. And, so that was my year of training. And also in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this Leadman thing would be pretty cool. I think there's like less than 400 people in the world who've ever done it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I'm like, all right. if I don't get the 24-hour run, but if I could be a lead man, wow,
Yeah.
that would be awesome. One of the reasons I've never done Leadman before was the bike race scared the hell out
Oh,
of
yeah, I
me.
bet. Yeah.
And I remember running down Power Line, saying to myself, there's no way I would ever bike down this thing. You kill yourself.
Yeah.
But yet that's part of the race and that's part of what people do. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm one of those guys.
Yeah.
And it's probably the second scariest thing I've done in my life is riding a mountain bike down Power Line. Um, but the other thing too was it was also a guaranteed entry into the 100.
Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because the Donker and I, he wasn't very clear knowing the rules of, you declare you're going to do it in
Yeah.
the beginning. Okay. So is there a lottery for that too?
No,
So you just
because
sign
there's
up.
not enough people crazy enough in the
So,
world
okay.
to fill it up.
Okay. So then the question I asked him was, what's like the first, there's 6 events, you pick five. I think it's a 50-mile
Yes.
run or a
You
50-mile
have to
bike.
run the marathon. You
Yeah.
have to run the 10K, easy one.
Yeah.
You have to do the 100-mile bike race. You have to do the 100-mile run. And you can choose to either do the 50-mile bike or the 50-mile run.
Okay. So what's the first? The marathon is first?
Hmm.
Okay. So what the question I asked him, and this is just for people that are interested, if you don't finish the marathon, can you keep going? Or are you out of the whole event?
Well,
You know, if you don't,
you're out of the lead man event. I mean, because led
you're not going to
to
get a lead man, but you can
right.
still keep going.
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
All you
All
have to
right.
do is you have to start the race.
Okay.
Now, some people like the bike is so hard to get into with the lottery. You
The
think the
hundred
run's
mile
hard to
bike.
get into? The 100-mile bike is
I
there's
could
people that have
see
been
that
trying
because,
for 15 years and they can't get in.
wow.
So some people sign up for Leadman, not
Uh,
many, like because I'm in the bike, and then like they'll DNF on all their runs.
and make it to the hundred
But
mile
the
bike.
spirit of
Yeah.
it is you're supposed to try,
Right. Right.
I mean, if they caught you running 50 yards and you checked out, they might call you on it, but people generally don't do that. But I've gotten in the lottery a couple times. The first two times I did the race, you could just get
Yeah.
in
Yep.
because there weren't enough people. But since Lifetime Fitness took it over, it's become so popular, and ultra running is just more popular. It is hard to get in.
Yeah.
So a couple years I've got in. Well, let's see. Um, I've I've raised money for charities a couple times. I get raised it once, and then the second time I just made the donation myself. And I was like, I could do it again. Kind of expensive, but
Yeah.
$3,000. But then I thought, you know what? I just like I was looking to shake it up, looking to do something a little differently, and I thought maybe training for the lead man will make me tougher and make me better for the run. And so then I did it, and then
Hmm.
I also there's a level of pride of being a lead man,
Oh, yeah.
and I certainly feel it now.
Yeah.
And I was excited to try it. I was scared to death of that bike race, and it still haunts me when I think back about it. It's one of those
Yeah.
facing your
Yeah.
fears thing, but there's something awesome about facing your fears after it's over. Like, wow, I did something I was really scared of, and I'm kind
Hmm.
of proud of it.
Yeah. So tell me about the marathon that makes it so difficult.
Oh, it's super hard because you go above 13,000 feet. It's the hardest race. It's just the shortest
Yeah.
race. So the 50-mile race, the marathon's harder than the 50-mile race. The 50-mile race is harder than the 100-mile race. They're just
Sh-
shorter.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, think in terms of like incline and steepness.
Yeah.
It's the hardest
Condensed.
26
Yeah.
miles, but
Yeah.
it's only 26 miles.
Yeah.
That's, I
And
think,
is there time cutoffs on that too?
yeah, but
Oh,
it's
wow.
pretty it's pretty gen. So the marathon, it's 9 hours, which is a long time, but it is really hard. I
Yeah.
mean, first 4.5 hours, you're climbing up, you know, three 3,000 feet,
Wow.
and it's really tough terrain.
Yeah.
And then coming back down, it's downhill, but that's not easy either.
No, it's you sometimes I feel like you can get hurt worse or something could go wrong going down versus up. Up, you're controlling your
Yeah,
pace. Down, you twist your ankle,
yeah.
you're done.
But generally speaking, if you don't get injured and you just don't, you know, um,
bonk out.
bonk out,
Yeah.
you probably got a pretty good chance of finishing the marathon because the time is a little more generous. The 50 miler, hey, it's 14 hours. That's 50 miles.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but yeah. But
But you
they're
did
easier than the 100
but
mile.
did you do the 50-mile bike or the run?
I did the run.
Oh, you did the 50-mile
Well,
run.
one, because the 50-mile bike, that course is even scarier than the 100-mile course. But if you're a biker, it doesn't scare you. I'm
Yeah.
not a biker.
Yeah.
I had never ridden a mountain bike before February, like 4 months before the race.
Wow.
So this was a
And you're
totally
also
experience.
59 years old when you're
Yeah,
training for it.
58 in the
58 into
training, then I
20.
turned 59. But yeah.
See,
And
man.
but I partly why I did the 50-mile run for two reasons. One, didn't want to bike, and two, it was a good training run for the 100.
Yeah, but I mean, now, so it goes the marathon, the 50-mile run, then it's the 100 bike, the 10K, and then the 100 miler.
Right.
What's the time frame in that? It's like June to August?
Yeah, so June 13th, or I don't know. June 6th. No. It's like June 26th for the marathon. July's like a week later, 10 days later. No, a week later for the 50-mile run. Yeah, which was nice because then when I went out, I could
You
stay.
could
I didn't have
stay,
to
yeah.
stay 3 weeks. So yeah, the marathon and the 50 miler were back to back weekends. And then you had, I think, 5 weeks off. Then it was like August 10th was the 100-mile bike
But yeah,
ride. The next day was the 10K.
yeah,
It's not hard, but it's like you're pretty sore and
you
tired, and you
think.
got to get up the next morning and run. There
Yeah,
is no time limit for the 10K. I
okay.
think I did it in like an hour and 3 minutes, which is fine.
Still,
Yeah. And then 6 days later, the
you're
100-mile
running
run.
100. It's insane.
Yeah.
I don't think people even understand or can comprehend how hard that would be, even if you're 25 years old, but being 59 or 58 and doing it is and it's unbelievable. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like that because we are all in this kind of running community here, we take it's like perspective again.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to be 58 this year and I
Right.
just ran, a backyard ultra for the first time. My first Leadville I was 48.
Yeah.
And I'm like working, kids,
Yep.
all that balance to try to do it and then, you know, to finish it and to for you to do Leadman at 58, 59, it's incredible. Like people train and you say, you did in training, you did a 100-mile race that year and then
Mhm.
you did the Leadman. Some people don't do 100 milers, number one,
Yeah.
but in the same 12, 16-month period,
And some
it's
people
crazy
run 100-mile races
every weekend. Yeah.
back to back weekends. This world is
Yeah.
full of it's a
Yeah.
spectrum of people. You have David Goggins and
Yeah.
David Clark, and people are just like insane,
Yeah.
and then everybody else along the way.
Let me ask you about this. I've been thinking about this a lot in the last like 4 or 5 years about the perspective part of it, but also about what I call, and I've been thinking about a theory on baseline delta. And what I mean by that is, okay, what's your baseline and then what did you achieve? And it can be in anything, right? If I look at like growing up where I did, where my parents, had this income and then where am I to that?
Hmm.
And then where did you start? So like it's amazing to me how you'll see people will gravitate towards like people that lost 250 pounds
Yeah.
and ran a marathon because they were 250 pounds and they got down to 150 and you're like, wow. But if I'm 175 pounds and I lose 5 pounds,
Yeah.
no one gives a crap.
Yeah.
So like what so like I've been thinking about that a lot and saying how, if you're gonna measure somebody on like success or like, it's where did you start to what you did?
Yeah.
And the further away, like, you were a teacher, like when you would grade on a curve and all that kind of stuff, it's a little different. But that's what I've been thinking about lately is that it's amazing that, you know, people do gravitate towards the ones that have the biggest
Yeah.
change,
Right.
and it inspires them, maybe.
No, I
What are
I
your thoughts
totally
on
agree.
that? I mean,
We
like where you started, when you did the race in 2005, if you weren't a runner and then you went from, couch to 100 miler,
Yeah.
that in itself to me is incredible.
Yeah, because right, my baseline for running was
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, if I look back over 20 years, like, what have I done? It's like, I've run 5 Leadvilles. I've done a Leadman. I've done an Ironman. I've done,
Yeah.
a couple of other races. It's like, yeah, there's some pride in there. I never, in 2005, I didn't map that out. It's just sort of been,
Yeah.
one year is like, hey, I should do this. And I'll give myself, a few months to prepare for it. But I guess I haven't looked ahead like, hey, 5 years from now, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest or anything like that.
Yeah.
Usually when I set something up, it's probably within a 2-year time frame. I know when I ran my Leadville in 2023, um, I given myself, no, it was 2021. Hmm. I think I was thinking about that in 2019. Like I know I'm going to start training for it, but I know I'm not going to do it in 2020, and I didn't know COVID was happening
Yeah.
either. But it's like I actually trained for like 2 years
Yeah.
for one Leadville.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean, it is interesting. You're right, and we celebrate the in society we do too, right? Is
Yeah.
if someone comes like they were really down and out and then
Hmm.
they've made it, we almost celebrate them more than someone who's been steady all
Consistent.
along and then
Correct.
they have the same level of
Yeah.
success. We like the comeback story. We like
Yeah.
the underdog. We
Yep.
like someone who's you know come from great odds down.
Yeah.
Um, it's okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny because like whenever we're with our group, Emily's going through it right now where she was peak and she was one of the best female runners
Yeah.
around, and
Yeah.
then she went into this little bit of a lull. And what I try to encourage her with was, look, you're hanging around with us, and you've got these guys that have run 100-mile races and da da da. So you're comparing yourself to, like, not say
Hmm.
elite, but some really accomplished runners. Don't sell yourself short.
Right.
You're doing everything we're doing,
Yes.
and almost to like sometimes better.
Yes.
So it's funny, like, when you hear, oh, John Byrne ran another Leadville, you're like, oh, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
But it's a huge deal. But then now, like, I know, most recently, like with Austin, where he started, same thing, right? He went from, not really running at all to
Hmm.
waiting 3 years because of all those other reasons of getting hurt, and then
Yeah.
COVID, and so training for 3 years and then going out. Uh, it was amazing. And then a guy like Evan Kihlstrom, who he's gonna do the podcast, which I'm excited to hear about his story
What
because,
a great kid.
yeah, and you go from, you had mentioned when before we started about the heaviest person to win the Boston Marathon, a guy that was what, 350 pounds?
Yeah, Division 1 football
Right.
player, and even he's super athletic, but again, for him to run
Yeah.
Leadville at that weight and height, it's like it's
Yeah,
phenomenal
I know.
because he's a trim, svelte 220. I mean, the guy still benches 400 pounds. He's
That's crazy.
amazing athlete,
Yeah.
but for him to run Leadville, just given the mass in his body, is even more incredible.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to talk to him about it because it's that story of the baseline, right? You go from one high level athlete sport, football,
Hmm.
to running and finishing one of the hardest, I would say, hardest 100-mile races, and losing all that weight and everything. I think it's incredible. I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah.
So you brought your axe. If you want to, I think it's pretty
This is
cool
my
because,
pride and joy.
yeah, I was talking to Dodonker about that. It's
So when you finish these races, they give you medals, and then if it's a 100 miler, they give you belt buckles, and then if you get the 5 lead challenge events, you get a pickaxe. And so this axe actually is a real axe. This is what the miners used, and so the point they get in there and dig out, and then this I don't know what this is called, but this is what they actually use to mine the molybdenum out of the mountains. And so, yeah, I love that. It's fun to have, and yeah, a
yeah. I mean,
tremendous source of pride
it's
for me.
only like a couple hundred people.
I think less than 400 in the
Wow.
world who've ever done this. Um, and Leadman's been around for I think uh, 25, 30 years, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. maybe a little bit less.
So
So,
are you running it again?
not this year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out. A good friend of mine, 78-year-old Marine is going for his 20th mountain bike race finish. And this is a guy who's run a 240 marathon too in his younger days too. This guy, Doc Bill Wenmark, super. He's a legend out there. He's finished 100-mile races out there before, but he's gotten into the bike. But just amazing. That bike race is really hard, and he's going for his 20th. So I'm out there, gonna go out there to celebrate with him. Is Leadville in my future? I don't know. It's funny. I don't have my target set on like, hey, I'm going back in 2027.
Yeah.
I don't. Honestly, I'm a little scared because I feel like my last finish was kind of, I don't want to say going out on top, but for me, like, wow, finished with a lead man, a
Yeah.
Leadville finish and the lead man.
Yeah.
And I never want to ride that bike ever again down a mountain. So I will never, ever, I can tell you for sure, I will not do another lead challenge. No way. God let me escape with my life once, and I not expecting him to do it again. Um, you know, I guess I would say just like before, the one thing I think that would keep me coming back, it's not a six Leadville finish. Now, if I got one, I wouldn't be mad. I'd be proud. But like the Donker, he wants to get
Oh yeah,
10.
10 is
I don't have
well,
any
I'm
desire to do that. I don't want to,
yeah.
that's not driving me. If somehow maybe they come up with a super chemical or whatever, or I get a new lease on life and I lose 40 pounds and I start running every day, I don't know. If I ever thought I could have a shot at maybe the sub 24, or you know what, I could even take a sub 25 because that's the big
Yeah,
buckle.
that's the big buckle, yeah.
That would maybe make me want to go. I don't know, just as I'm older and I'm really not running as much. I probably put on there 25 pounds the last year. I've been lifting a
Yeah.
lot.
You
Some
can
of it's
tell.
good strength
Yeah.
weight, some of it's not good
Yeah,
weight. Shame on me. Um, but as I'm looking right now, I'm like, I'm not seeing that I want to make that change. But in the past, 2013, I wasn't planning on going back. It took me till 2015 to figure it out. It's just now I'm running out of time, man.
Yeah.
I'm in the fourth quarter of my life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, eh. Now, then there's other goal you could think about. It's like, wow, well, I've never looked at like who's the oldest person to finish Leadville. Like, am I close to that? Was there ever someone who was 66 that finished Lead?
There's somebody out there though, right? There is
I was
somebody
like,
that
maybe, I don't know. It's not gnawing at me right now. So right now, my plan is probably to pace people at Leadville,
yeah.
to go out and celebrate what's out there. I don't have immediate plans to run it, but never say never. But right now, I have no concrete plans. Like I'm going back here and I'm doing this. It may be one of those. I mean, we move on, right?
Yeah.
I can never play high school sports again. Not that I really played that much when I was younger. Actually, that's you were asking sometimes earlier, like what drives me.
Yeah.
Um, I loved sports as a kid, and I felt like I worked really hard. I probably didn't have a lot of talent, and I really didn't get a lot of achievement and accolades as a youth. Um, and I think that has driven me as an adult. It's like kind of getting some of that um, satisfaction that I
Mhm.
never got growing up. So it's like now it's great, because here I'm this adult and I'm in pretty decent shape and I've done some pretty cool things. But it's like I can't go back and like celebrate all my achievements in high school because I really didn't have any.
Yeah.
So this is sort of like I guess I'm living out my childhood a little bit by doing all these crazy nutty things.
Yeah. Kurt and I were talking about when he was little, like basketball practice, and you can practice on your own, right? Shoot free throws. Running, I feel like I've talked with this guy, Mark Dowdle. I'm going to ask you about that backyard thing in a minute, but it's, um, no one can run the miles for you. And it's something where I feel like it's the only part of, well, at some certain times, it was the only part of my life that I was in control. right? When you're out there running, you're in total control of your goal, you're in total control of what you do, how, all that is all on you versus like in the business world where you're part of a bigger
Mhm.
team and there's other people you have to rely on and all that. And we can talk about support crew and all that because
Oh gosh.
I know you had mentioned this and I say it and I just pulled up an article that was written in like 2012 or 15. It was through Live Uncommon, and I don't know, it showed up on Facebook or something, but
Yeah.
I had said something, and then, which is not my saying, but like none of the greatest accomplishments in life are done alone, right? There's
None.
always somebody supporting you and all that. But I feel like that's the one thing that I find, and I talked to John DeDonker about that. Like you're just out there, and it's all on you, right? So I will switch gears here and ask you about your next challenge, and maybe it's not Leadville, but I'll tell you, I don't even know when I started following like this backyard thing. I think it became more mainstream during COVID
Hmm.
because there was no real like organized races and stuff, and people started doing these crazy ones where there's the original one, but then they were like running literally in their backyard, you know, to do this
Hmm.
backyard ultra and we had the chance this year. It was like a reunion of runners, like a couple of our, like Rich Russell, you met him.
Yep.
So Rich moved away, Chris Brooks moved away. We were like, hey, let's get together for a race, and and Rich found this one in Wisconsin.
Nice.
And man, did we do everything wrong? But you know what? Like Kurt said, as soon as he came off that mountain and didn't finish, he wanted to get right back on it.
Yeah.
So as soon as I came home from that, I drove back and I was like, man, I could have done way better
Sure.
if I had trained. And do you have any interest in maybe doing something like that? Because it's, you know, when I got back, we went to lunch with a bunch of people, and I'm not going to say who, but like I talked about the race, and you have to finish that 4.19 or
Every
two
hour.
miles every hour, and they were like, "Oh, that's only a 15-minute mile," and I was like, "Okay,
Hmm.
you go do it then."
Yeah, that's right.
And this course though that we did, and that guy Mark who won it, it was not easy. I mean, we were
No.
on a ski slope
Yeah.
up and down. You were probably only running on a flat surface for a half a mile out of the four.
Okay.
So up it, down it, back up it, hiking, and so didn't train that, and we definitely didn't train the no ending part.
Yeah.
Knowing there's a goal, 50 miles, 100 miles, you're like, okay, I got to get there. This
Right.
one was just run
As
until you
long
don't
as
want
you
to
can.
run
Right.
anymore,
Yeah.
and that excites me now. And I've already signed up for another one.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would almost think though that you would want to like at least have something in mind like, hey, I want to do, I want to do 40 miles. And then if once you get to 40, feel good and maybe
Mm,
keep going. But sometimes it is nice to say, I'm aiming for
last
seven of
man.
these things or
Well,
whatever.
I think that I would want to go into it thinking I want to be the last one standing
Okay.
because of that
Yeah.
fact that you can just stop whenever you want,
Okay. So the
you
guy who
know?
did it last year ran what, 150 miles?
158 miles.
Okay. So if you think that you can, feel pretty safe saying go for 160
Not on
and you'll
that.
get
There's no
there.
way I'm running that one again. The one I'm doing is a different one, and I think Chris Brooks has done it. That one, no way.
Yeah.
That one, I don't even know how. I mean, Mark, I think he's an unbelievable athlete. He's
Yeah.
young. He's 28. But have you ever heard of that one up in Minnesota? Um, it's like a 135-mile race. Man, I can't remember the name of it. And you pull a sled in the winter.
That's awesome.
I forget what the name of it is, but so there's other stuff out there that you can,
Oh,
set your
yeah.
sights on that will
Uh,
maybe be a little bit different like the lead man was for you.
yeah.
The backyard ultra thing might be a thing for you. I'm thinking about trying to maybe organize one around here. I think it would be cool. Maybe it won't be the 4 miles. Maybe it will be like, okay, a safe 2 miles within
Yeah.
30 minutes and then just
Yeah.
keep going. So,
So next challenge.
yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, right now, I don't have one. And it's certainly I don't have a running one. I've been working on my bench press. I got 310 up the other day. So I'm like, okay, 315 is my high. Maybe it'd be kind of fun to do 320. So maybe I'll do that. Because I've been probably lifting like 3, 4 days a week. So that's been fun. Did do a 10-mile run yesterday, so I'm like, I still want to run, but nothing's hit me yet, and I'm still kind of basking in my lead man. But I know
Yeah.
I shouldn't do that forever. Um, I'm also kind of interested in um, that I want to be done myself, but I'm interested in helping other people. And I think about like my grandkids and just like, even my kids and just other people. It's like maybe not like, but I still want to stay fit and in shape. I think that's just a good thing for a person to do with their life. It's good for your self-esteem. It's good for everything. But
Mhm.
um, I don't know. I'm doing rim to rim at the Grand Canyon this October. It's not really a race. It's just a completion
Yeah.
activity. Um, but yeah, talk to me a year from now. It's like maybe I'll have something
Yeah.
come up. But right now, it's like no, I don't have any other. Like, hey, I'm doing this race in November. I'm not. I'm just. I mean, I'm working out a lot. It's just uh,
So let me ask you
nothing
about
notable, I
let me
guess.
ask you about that.
Yeah,
You know, because I know I think Paul DeWitt was the trainer you got. So have you put that same kind of philosophy effort into the lifting? Like, do you have a lifting coach? Have you thought about doing or finding out more about technique? And like my older brother Mike, he was a power lifter for a long
yeah,
time, and he had a mentor guy, this guy Mark
right.
Ironfield, and he was a all natural, like
Yeah,
national champion,
yeah,
bench presser, the deadlift, the squat, the
yeah.
bench, all that
Olympic
kind of
lift.
stuff.
Yeah,
And I mean, there's definitely the same exact stuff applies with running is in
you're
lifting
right.
is coaching,
Yeah.
diet, technique. So if trying to get 325, maybe
You're right. I mean, that probably would help
yeah,
because, I get some tips from people. I look
yeah,
stuff up on the internet, but I also tried doing that with running too.
yeah,
But, the coach, they know they've been doing this for years. And so if that goal becomes important enough to me, I'll probably do some of that stuff.
yeah.
Right now, I just kind of seat of the pants doing it. But so
Okay,
that's
well,
interesting. I'm glad you said that because you're right. If you really want to achieve something, and you know what? Let's take it beyond running. Let's take it beyond weightlifting. Let's extend it to business. Let's to anything in life
yeah,
that you want to become accomplished at. It probably makes sense to access the experts.
mm,
And nobody wants to pay for anything. I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people don't want to pay for things. But do you want results or not?
mhm,
Because if I look back over my life, I never really felt like, oh, I've got the financial resources to go out and pay for this, this, and that. But sometimes I think if I had found a way to pay for things, I might have been able to achieve more faster if I had brought the right resources into play versus just trying to figure it out myself.
yeah,
And you see that a lot of times with people who are the best in their fields. It's like they found the right coaches, the right people, paid them, which people should be paid for their expertise. So I think that's a really great lesson. If you really want to do something, you should probably try to go find the
mm,
best and invest in that. If that goal is important to you. If it's not important to you, then that's a different story. But if you want to be the best, you probably need to hang around with the best and learn from the best
yeah.
and do what the best do.
Yeah, you mentioned investment, right? So you're really investing in yourself, though. You're
Yeah.
paying, but you're investing in your own thing, right? That's kind of like this podcast, like taking a chance. Why not? Why don't you take, me? Like, why aren't I doing that stuff? So then you mentioned, what's next, and you had a coach. Have you considered now you could be a coach? I mean, you're considered, I would say, an expert in this field. I would say, you've done um, all this stuff. And I mean, you've got all that knowledge, and you definitely, as I started in the beginning of the conversation, that has transformed into other people. Like
Yeah.
your knowledge
Yeah.
of, and we joke a little bit, like Kurt and I, about some of the crazy stuff that you had us doing in 2016. But he always would say, look, it was stuff that you didn't want to do mentally, but you did it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me was a really crucial part of the training is doing hard stuff that you don't want to do, but you're doing it during the training because that's going to happen in the race. You're not going to want to do it, and you're going to have to do it if you want to
Yeah.
win or succeed.
Yeah, no, that's true. I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about coaching other people in ultra running. I know a lot just because of life experience.
Hmm.
I'm not confident that my running knowledge and nutrition knowledge is great. I don't know if I'd want to go there.
Yeah,
I
but
certainly
but
want to
there's other
encourage
parts of
people that,
coaching,
yeah,
right? There's the
yeah,
mental aspect of the coaching,
true.
right?
I'd probably be good
You
at
know, a
that.
lot of these top level athletes, you talk about investing in themselves and investing money in a coach. So a lot of times right now they have like sports psychologists,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
that's a huge, I mean, you mentioned it earlier too. It's physical, but it's probably way more
Oh,
mental.
way more mental.
So what's more important? Having a physical coach that knows what runs to run or a mental coach to help you through those? I think a mental
Both.
coach would
Yeah.
be amazing, to have. Like with that guy Paul DeWitt, does he, when you're talking with him, it's yeah, here's your schedule, but he's also having conversations
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
So
And and again, he's got the track record and, credibility and,
I think
yeah,
he got
I
that.
feel like emotionally he was helpful as well as, with the workouts and hey, run these miles, go at this pace.
Hmm.
He had me doing it's just funny that some of the things like never thought about that. So like just for example, he'd be like, okay, set a treadmill. Let's set it at, let's see, speed 6, 10-minute miles. And for 2 minutes, you're going to run at incline 0, 1, 2 minutes, incline 2. And you're going to go as high as you can
Yeah, and so you
and
can't.
then until you can't do it anymore. Then you're going to come back and rest or go easy 5 minutes. And then you're going to do it again. And then you're going to do it again. And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
But that stuff really made me mentally tough.
yeah. Well,
So,
I think you're 90% there because you were a teacher.
yeah,
Okay, so you've taught people. That's basically a coach, a mentor.
yeah,
And now the physical part, you've kind of, you've done it and definitely done it at that age, right? Like, so
yeah,
if you're going to try to become a coach or a mentor for somebody, I mean, you've got 90% there.
yeah. It's been fun. I get joy out of helping people succeed. So,
Mm,
go back to Leadville for a
yeah.
second. A couple of very rewarding things for me. In 2007, I went out to help a friend run, Doug Himmelman, and Doug made it 50 miles, which that's hard, right? But I was going to pace him.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't get to pace him because he didn't
Yeah.
get past 50. So there were guys from the Quad Cities out there, and there was a guy named Dave Jessen. He and his
Oh, yeah.
friend were going to run it together. Well, his friend dropped out, so now he's all by himself on the back end. So I paced him the last marathon of
Oh,
the
wow.
race,
I didn't know
unplanned,
that.
but it was just, and it was so cool because he was so dejected and so depressed, and it was in the middle of the night when I caught up with him. And by the time we finished, it was like, he had come through that, and we finished really strong, and he did the work,
Yeah.
but it felt so gratifying
Mm.
to know that if it weren't for me, he wouldn't have finished.
Yeah.
And I would
That's
say
pretty
the
cool.
same thing on all my finishes. I don't finish any of those races without my crew and my pacers. I don't. I mean, I'm not that good.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm not I don't have any I'm glad to say that I needed people to help finish. It was like our victory, not just mine.
Hmm.
Um but I had a chance to do it with Dave and then even Pace and Kurt when 2018. I was just one of his pacers, but taking him from Twin Lakes to the
Power.
half pipe field
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah, it's like played a role in to see him get his buckle after not getting it. It wasn't my buckle, but I felt so good. And so
Yeah.
I paced probably 6, 7 people out there, and it's a different kind of joy, but it's just as
Yeah.
good.
I tell everybody that I 16 was emotional. It was like a great achievement,
Yeah.
but I didn't feel um I felt rather way more emotional when I paced Austin and
Hmm.
when he was barely making it
Yeah.
and he made it. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, I felt a different
Yeah,
feeling, but better than when I because when you're running it, you're at the point where it's 20 something hours in and you're
right.
just like
Brain's
drained
dead.
and
Yeah,
dead,
yeah.
you're like, okay, I finished. Wow, no big deal. But when you pace somebody and you're helping them, like you said, it was amazing the feeling I had. It was incredible.
Well, think about it as a parent. It's
True.
like, like your children. It's like, okay, when you see them walk across the stage at high school, or you
Right.
see them win a soccer game, or you
Yeah.
just see them experience success and joy, it's like you're not experiencing it, but you feel this great joy because like you help prepare this person to do this.
Yeah.
And so in a different way, I guess. And so like I get a lot of joy out of, even like gosh, I'm trying to think of how many teams I coached,
Yeah.
with my kids growing up. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, if I'm coaching and my, kid makes a great play or the other kids I'm coaching make great plays or they fight hard to win, it's like I didn't get to do it. But there's great joy in there and seeing other people succeed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. Now, it's fun to achieve it yourself, but it's really fun to see other people achieve it too. So maybe as I continue to age, and maybe it's less of me and more of other people, but nonetheless, I still get to be involved and
Yeah.
still get to see people succeed. As a professor for 32 years at Ambrose, and so much joy in seeing these students develop, and
Hmm.
like when they get this great job or they do something and they experience success and joy, it's like I feel that as well, which is what makes life great, right?
Yeah.
We're all here to help each other out, and
Yeah.
it's been a good ride.
All right. One last question
Yeah,
because it's coming up. The Bix. Are you going to run the Bix?
probably not.
Yeah.
One, I'm probably not in very good shape enough to do it. Um, let's see. I ran a sub 50. Gosh, when I was probably 12. No, no, no. It's probably been 15 years ago. And I always wanted to run a sub 50 again. One time I got to 50:20.
Oh,
6 or something. That one I still might. That one I think I could go back and get. I don't think it'll be this year. I'm too
okay.
heavy.
Yeah.
But sometime in the future, I'll probably run it again. I think I've done 15 Vixes, but I haven't done any in the last several years.
Yeah.
Gotta get back there sometime.
Good.
Not this year though.
I think
I'll be cheering you on though.
for time. Yeah. That I tell everybody that's like the hardest 7 mile race in the world, I
It's very
believe.
tough.
I think it's one of them, but I think Kurt is really gunning for sub 46, which is unbelievable. But I think he's in good enough shape.
I expect he will do it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. All right. Well, I mean, I really appreciate you coming over and sharing your experience. I hope people can get something out of it. That's the thing I like doing about this is like
Yeah.
trying to motivate somebody or help somebody in some way. And hearing the stories is really cool. So thank you.
You're welcome. It was enjoyable. Appreciate it.